Hey, welcome from my side. I've got the pleasure and the honor to kick off the keynote. We've got plenty of people for you today, this morning, so this is going to be a busy stage with plenty of topics. And I got my usual roadmap update kind of coming into this conference, but I'll do a little more than that. We've got the live polling system here, so we'll make use of it. Just generally, it's actually been the first time I've seen the statistics from last year, so let me take the opportunity for a call out to people from Austria. We're in the top 5 now, so my home country showing up in the top 5 at this conference is a special pleasure for me. Generally, thanks for being here. This is a community conference. It basically lives and breathes with all the interactions that you get, that we get, so that we get here together once a year in this beautiful place is a very fine tradition in this wider ecosystem, this wider community already. All right, before I get into my material, we can actually start with the live poll and try the polling system once again. As you know, we are very interested in moving on through the evolution, along with the evolution of the Java platform, with the offerings that we have. And I've got something to announce right afterwards. I'm going to take the opportunity for a poll. What's the primary Java version that you develop your current applications on? This is a reference point for us in our own planning. So any indications here are super helpful. We know that older applications, older systems keep running on whichever platform version they're on. The primary interest is if you start a new application or if you revisit an existing application and kind of overhaul it, which version of Java would you migrate it to? All right, that's actually a pretty good outcome. There's a bit of an industry consensus among all the major stakeholders in the Java ecosystem that Java 17 is kind of the new Java 8, right? So you might already have seen that independent vendors out there chose Java 17 as a new kind of baseline for their offerings. So if you're on Java 8, we feel with you. We've been there for a long time. Java 11 seems to have a bit of a transitionary role, really, in the long evolution of the Java platform. Java 17 is certainly a new reference point. And let's not forget that Java 21 has a lot to offer. It has, of course, virtual threads. It has quite a few things. So Java 21 is obviously a huge candidate if you're migrating an application right now to go straight to Java 21 if you can. All right, one more question. The primary Spring Boot version that you would be using for developing new applications or revisiting applications and kind of bumping the baseline. Of course, that's connected. We have our Java 17 baseline in Spring Boot 3.0, so we are aware that there's a relationship here. But those are independent questions, since you can run Spring Boot 2.7 perfectly fine on JDK 17 or 21 if you want to, right? All right. The 22% of people running Spring Boot 3.3 for like 1 week. So kudos to you in doing this. But I'm going to interpret this as you are going to use Spring Boot 3.3 now that it is available for developing new applications. And that's, of course, exactly where we want you to be. So the Spring Boot 3.x line, every half year you get a new feature release, and by all means, make use of them. They are meant for you to migrate to them one by one every half year, really, to follow along. So that's great. We basically have half of you on Spring Boot 3.2, and we've got like 18% on Spring Boot 2.7, which is, I suppose, mostly for JDK 8 or JDK 11 bound applications, or just existing applications you have to migrate but can't upgrade the boot version for some reason. That's my takeaway from this. All right, thanks for the polling. And we'll move on. So I've got a couple of loose announcements this morning. we've got a new version of our developer survey, the State of Spring survey. It's going to be published today, and so made publicly available today. And those are quotes from the survey. So those are not exactly the same numbers that we've just been polling, but they're sort of indicative of where we are overall. There's multiple choices, of course. So there's in any given organization, there would be a mix of Java versions in use. Java 17 being used in 73% of the organizations that responded in the survey is great. Java 21 in more than half as well. And of course, the same organizations would also be using some Java 8, some Java 11. We've got a couple of extra questions down there because we actually asked for languages in this one, so it's not exactly the same question. But in the languages, 27% responded that they are using Kotlin in some capacity, to some degree, in the organization. That's a huge number. It came as a surprise, actually, for us. It does not mean that it's the primary language, right, necessarily. But some use of Kotlin, and that definitely matches what we're seeing even on the issue tracker these days. All right. For the Spring Boot versions, just quoting basically the related pieces from the survey that we're making available today. There's a comparison here with older results. In 2024, for the 2024 survey that we're publishing today, we have 55% of Spring Boot 3.2. That's again, of course, overlapping. The same organizations would be using multiple versions of Boot at the same time in production. But Spring Boot 3.2, more than half of the organizations are using some Spring Boot 3.2 in production already. And that's great. There's no Spring Boot 3.3 here because the survey obviously ended before 3.3 became available, and that's exactly where I'm going to go next. This is not really an announcement because it's already out, but let's celebrate that Spring Boot 3.3 is now generally available for just a few days. So by all means, have a look at it, plan for your upgrades to it. Spring Boot 3.3 is based on the Spring Framework 6.1.x line, like on 6.1.8 and following. As you might be aware, Spring Framework has a yearly cadence, so there's a new feature release once a year. Spring Boot 3.3 is kind of the intermediate boot release that is still on the same Spring Framework generation as 3.2, but comes with additional improvements on that basis. In particular, CDS support, which we're going to hear more about in a moment. And some general revisions. There's a lot of observability improvements in the Spring Security Auto configuration. There's quite a bit in this release. So by all means, have a look, plan your upgrades, and it's already generally available. Related to the Spring Framework release cadence, we are already working on the next feature release, the next generation, or the next minor generation of the core framework. This is currently in the milestone phase. It's meant to go GA in November 2024, so in about half a year, along with Spring Boot 3.4, picking it up for the first time. We are already in the third milestone, so there's quite a bit that we're doing here. It's meant for you to try and kind of let us know if anything breaks, but in particular, try the new features. There's quite a bit of an overhaul in this. We're touching a lot of the core container internals, quite a bit of the expression language support. It's basically on the same baseline as Spring Framework 6.0 and 6.1 were. It additionally brings some early Jakarta E11 support, like JPA 3.2, Servlet 6.1. But the most interesting part here is that we're kind of wrapping up a lot of the core feature sets. We had some long-standing issues on the issue tracker that we're finally bringing to you now. So we took the opportunity to go through the issue tracker back to the beginnings of time and kind of collect all the interesting bits and pieces we had there and kind of condensing them into this core container revision, in particular here in Spring Framework 6.2. So there's a long what's new already. If you want to see exactly what you can try in the current milestone, it's up there on the wiki, kept up to date as the milestones are being published. So if you want some early insight into what's happening there, I've got my breakout session, Spring Framework 6.2 Co-Container Revisited this afternoon. All right, so much from my side. And it's my pleasure to invite Sebastian to the stage. I can't actually see where you're sitting. Oh, yeah, come over. Yeah. So, Sebastian, the stage is yours. Hey, cheers.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sebastian Deleuze. I am one of the Spring Framework core committers. And today I'm going to talk about runtime efficiency with Spring, because per Spring survey, that's still a pretty popular topic. I would like to celebrate with you today how much the Spring community has embraced native images. Spring Boot is by far the most popular framework used to create native application with GraalVM. I mean, 11% of Spring developers deploying at least one native application on production. It's a lot of people, given how wide the usage of Spring is in the world. So I think that's a pretty good news. We continue to collaborate with the GraalVM team in order to make GraalVM easier to use, especially with your Java libraries, because we know there is some challenges involved. But we also want to realize that basically leveraging GraalVM native images is not a free lunch. It involves some challenges. It's a good fit for some kind of application, not for others. So today, we are going to focus on what we have done lately for Spring Boot application running on the JVM. In 2023, last year, we have created a Spring Efficiency Working Group in order to tackle related challenges in terms of benchmarks, new features, optimizations, user feedback across Spring portfolio. And this working group has been working on 2 new features that we have shipped as part of Spring Boot 3.3. The first feature is the capability for a Spring executable jar to self-extract itself, just with a command, in order to have a directory layout that is the most efficient way to run your application on production. And we advise everybody to use this new layout. Previously, you can do that manually, but now there is a dedicated feature in order to run your application on production if you are using executable jars. If you are using build packs, it's already using this layout. I think what is also interesting is that this new layout is by default CDS friendly. So CDS is class data sharing. It's a feature that allows your Spring application to start faster and consume less memory. And this new layout basically fulfill all the CDS constraints. So I think that's a good thing. CDS is slightly less efficient in terms of startup time and warm-up time than Project Crack that I presented last year, but it has a lot of advantages. It is much easier to use in your project, just a flag to enable. We will see that after. It involves less trade-off. It works on all operating systems, while Crack only works on Linux. So basically, yeah, it's much easier to leverage. There is a feature that I really like. This is the second feature. It's CDS support in build packs. Build packs, thanks, Ashon. Build packs is this feature, this open source project that allows to create a container image out of the box from Spring Boot application. And basically what we have done is that we have added CDS support in build packs in order to basically just enabling a flag, you will leverage this Spring Boot 3.3 self-extracting feature. Build packs will automatically do the training run that is required to create the CDS archive that will allow your application to start faster, and use this, ship this CDS archive within your container image, so you have a self-contained, optimized container image, and start faster and consume less memory. We have also added optional support for Spring ahead of time optimization in build packs, and so you can enable those 2 features pretty easily. So working on efficiency with Spring is a bit like working with efficiency for electric cars. Combining multiple small improvements can make a huge difference. In this graph, you can see that we are measuring the startup time of Pet Clinic, the Spring Data JDBC variants. We start from Spring Boot 2.7 Java 8, then we upgrade to Spring Boot 3.3 Java 21, and we gradually introduce some efficiency-related features that are usually just a flag to enable. And you can see that with Spring Boot 3.3, you can decrease the startup time by 42%, which is pretty significant. And if you add some Spring Boot 3.4 upcoming features like the new WebJar support that remove all the WebJar class path scanning at the startup, you can get a pretty impressive 70% decrease of the startup time. Thanks. But there is more good news. On memory consumption, you can see that combining Spring IoT, CDS, and WebJar's locator improvements can decrease the memory consumption after startup of 35%, which is pretty good. And it's not just about CDS and Spring IoT, it's also about improving the performance or the throughput, the latency with virtual threads. So what we have found in our benchmarks is that virtual threads, which is just a flag to enable on Spring Boot 3.2 and 3.3, can very significantly increase the throughputs and reduce the latency when you are using 1 or 2 CPUs. So when you are using cheap instance in the cloud, virtual thread make a huge difference. When you have more resources, it still make a difference, but a bit less. But really, that can allow us to use a cheaper machine for our workloads. And I think this is the gist of what I present today. Spring Boot 3.3, Java 21, virtual thread, and CDS allow you to use smaller and cheaper instances with better performance, and we try to make it much easier for you to leverage those improvements. Last element, we continue to collaborate with the Java platform team on Project Leyden. So Project Leyden is a pretty wide project, but they are working on improving CDS. And more specifically, we are working to make the startup time even faster. So on my machine, you can see the figures. I can start the Pet Clinic GDBC application very, very, very fast, less than half of a second. We are working on doing the warm-up of your application during the training run. That means that when you will start your application, it will be already warm up. And we are also working on smaller containers by allowing to just get the CDS archive for your application and remove the CDS archive that is at JDK level in order to get smaller containers. So it's still experimental for the Project Leyden part. CDS, virtual thread, etc. You can all use that on production with Java 21 and Spring Boot 3.3. And we will share more about the Project Leyden stuff when that will be basically less experimental. Now, let me welcome Brian and Stefan for the demo. Thanks. Thanks.
All right. Hello.
Hi.
So let's use in practice what Sebastian talked about today. We're gonna run our app and package our app and not do that maybe? Or like
Yeah, let's not do that. Oh boy, what? What did
oh,
I do?
it's wrong Java.
You
wrong
know,
Java
that's why you shouldn't close my windows.
yeah.
Mister.
All right, so when you start the app, we're gonna see how long it takes. So 1.7 something seconds. So that's why as we talked about earlier, you shouldn't really run your apps in production like this with java-jar. Instead, you should use the jar mode tools and extract your application locally with the extract keyword and extract all that into a destination that doesn't exist already.
It does exist, yeah. I didn't clean my stuff, I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, let's do
So
it.
once it's extracted, it's avoiding the jar within jar and looking up resources within the jar, so it's all laid out flat. And this way, you'll get a significant startup improvement already with like 300 milliseconds, something like this.
Yeah.
So this is quite easy. It's quite neat for the file system as well. So this is an easy way to get better results already. And then this one is about using CDS in your application.
So asking CDS to write the cache on shutdown. This is really telling the Spring container it's going to be a training run, don't start servicing requests, stop at the right time, etc., at the latest possible time, if you will. And the last one is because we're using Flyway, we don't want like a connection to the database, we basically shut that down.
So now that we had that training run, we have all the class data archive ready to be used. And to use that, we need to launch the application and point the Java binary to the archive we just created. And doing so will also give us a significant boost in startup time, this time down to less than a second. Yes, exactly. So this is quite easy, as you can see, but it's also a bit tricky sometimes, right?
Yeah, so there's a number of things that you need to take care of. You need to be careful with timestamp. You need to be careful about the JVM, because the cache might be invalidated if you switching to a different environment. So it can be really tricky, and that's where build packs comes in, because it provides really the full experience and making sure that things are working properly, building a container with the training run included. So let's have a look to that. Get off the Wi-Fi, please.
Just for a sec. So with Java, with the Paquito build packs, what you get is actually a controlled environment where your application is packaged, and when you have a chance to get in, do the CDS work within that controlled environment, and we know for sure that the class cache will be well adjusted and will be used in production, because as Stefan said, it's quite easy to, if you change slightly the Java version, if you do something with the file system, or even if you copy files, the class data cache might be not used in the end. So this is the way to really get that 100% result that you really want with the class data sharing. And as you can see, within the container, we get significant, like the same results, basically.
Yeah. So it's all integrated, so give it a try. It's like putting best practices to your build. It's a bit like auto-configuration if you want, but putting those best practices to your build. And if you need to tune it, like build packs, as you probably know, they have like plenty of extension points for you. So let's have a quick look, by the way, because we didn't do that, to the build config.
So this is what you need to do if you want to use, so right now this is oh, by the way, the builder, right?
Yes, just ignore that if you're not on Apple Silicon, but if you're on an M something Mac, you'll be pleased to know that there is now support for RM Max. Yeah.
And Dashan's pretty happy about this.
Dashan is pretty happy.
You won't have to maintain anymore.
So you don't need to do that, basically, if you want to build on x86. And those are the variable that you need to opt into to get CD support. So basically asking build packs, please do the training run. And the second one is the same thing as what we did to disable Flyway. Yeah,
and you can do the same for AOT.
Yes.
Support as well.
Yes,
there's
so you can combine, you can also include AOT, and AOT will be included automatically at the training run and the runtime.
All right.
But that's boring, right?
Okay, now we want to see some new stuff with our code.
Yep.
So this time we're going to use the 6.2 snapshots.
No, snapshot? Yeah, let's go with snapshot.
No.
No, okay.
M3 is fine. So yeah, this is the latest milestone that we got out with Spring Framework team, and we're going to show you a few new features that we've been worked on. So as you can see here, we've got a web MVC test testing our own applications that we'll use later today for our presentation, and we're using the mock MVC API to test our application. And over the years, we've had a lot of feedback on this, people asking about a Sergey because they really like a Sergey and how to use it in their test.
Who's using a Sergey, by the way? Who likes it? Yeah, a Sergey is awesome.
So it's really popular, and so that's why we've been working on mock MVC tester, which is a variant of mock MVC, where you'll get the nice, fluent experience that you're expecting with the Sergey, and you can like write your new test, move existing tests if you want to that variant, and you'll get the same experience, but with a flavor that you probably prefer.
Come on, SJ, you can do this.
I said that.
Yes. I don't know why.
Sometimes. All right.
Okay, good.
So here we're still getting the API incidence endpoint, which is a JSON endpoint. And you can fluently check that the status is OK, and we can have checks on the JSON response. So this is a different flavor. You don't need like a lot of static imports, just like you need with mock MVC. But it's really doing the same thing in a way that you might prefer. So here in this case, we are also adding several statements to check if the status is okay in that case, and when we get multiple incidents, we're also checking the array with JSON path support. So checking the numbers of things and also checking whether our incidents, which is our model that we're getting from the API, we're checking that these incidents, they have the proper title, description, and so on.
And so you get like JSON support with a way to extract a JSON value. So it could be a string, a Boolean, a number, etc. But it could also be a nested object. And if you ask for a nested object, you essentially get a map of key, which is the property name, to value, which could be nested. And so you can write this nice SOJ consumer where you can do things. The other one here is, actually it's pretty much the same, so let's not care too much about that. But what you could do also is, you can see here, it's reading JSON manually. You can see that here. Reading JSON manually and making sure that it matches with JSON assert. You can also do that, so we have support for JSON pass and JSON assert. You've seen JSON pass so far, but so okay, so let's say not found, and then what we want to say is content type. So you get the nice Fluent API, but also on the JSON you could say, I want to be able to load from this class, and then you could say strictly equal to, and just provide the name of the JSON file. So essentially, it's a convention that if it ends with JSON, we will try to load a file, and if you provide the raw JSON, we'll try to match to that. So we are a bit behind. So if you want to see more of that, not necessarily the SOJ stuff, but really what's new in 6.2 or what you can do with your Spring Boot 3.3 app, we have a session right after the keynote in room, I don't know what, but you'll find it, I'm sure. Enjoy the conference. And Rossan is going to give us a GraphQL update.
One of the questions in the Spring survey is about the types of APIs that you expose to consumers. Now, keep in mind that this is a multiple choice question, so that they're not mutually exclusive, and they don't reflect actual number of deployments. But they do represent the types of applications, the types of different kinds of ways in which you build APIs among those who responded. At nearly 80% for plain JSON over HTTP, and between 13 and 15% for hypermedia, it's very clear that the dominant way to deploy applications is with plain JSON over HTTP. And there is a lot of space in between for more structure, and that's evident from the use of OpenAPI as well as GraphQL. Actually, these represent numbers, the three different colors represent numbers over 3 different years, the past 3 years, and the numbers for plain JSON are actually declining. There is a trend in which they're declining year over year, while both OpenAPI and GraphQL are rising as a trend. Now, GraphQL doesn't really replace REST. REST can do a much wider range of things. However, for what it does, GraphQL serves the purpose of data APIs extremely well. It's very well positioned to do that. And it also provides a schema type language, which is independent of the programming language. A lot of the benefits of OpenAPI with a proper spec. In terms of actual numbers, we know for Spring 4 GraphQL that we're seeing 75% growth year over year for the past 2 years, so we know that that's growing pretty healthy as well. Just with Boot 3.3, just a couple of weeks ago, we released another update for Spring 4 GraphQL. There's a lot of new features, support for virtual threads, for synchronous client, We now also have first-class support for DGS code generation. So if you want to have a strongly typed client API, you can use that more easily with our GraphQL client over different transports. We now have federation support with annotated controller methods. So if you're doing federation, there's now first-class support, which is built into Spring for GraphQL. We've increased support for unions, interfaces, and several other features as well. Probably the most notable thing, actually, is our collaboration with Netflix and the DJS team at Netflix. We evolved in parallel before DJS was open source, to a large degree overlapping. We're not aware of each other's effort, and they were ahead of Spring for GraphQL. So it took us a little bit of time to catch up, but here we are with actually two different solutions in this space. What we've done over the past year is to work with Netflix to create an integration that allows the DJS framework to run on top of Spring for GraphQL transports. And I'm happy to say that now Netflix, as far as I'm aware, is running on top of Spring for GraphQL for many of their applications. And GraphQL is used very widely. This is a win-win situation for both DJS and Spring for GraphQL because we have the assurance of running at scale in Netflix with Spring for GraphQL underlying that, while Netflix and DJS can take out a whole range of concerns, all the various different transports that we have without necessarily having to develop those. If you'd like to learn more about this, I have a session first thing tomorrow morning. And with that, I'd like to turn over to Cora Iberclyde.
The clicker is up there. Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. All right. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Morning. Oh, I think we had I think there was survey questions. Let's see if they appear magically. There we go. Okay. So in the past year, have you created any microservices? Let's give it a minute. Okay, seems like a pretty strong yes, I would say. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, let's go to the next question. In the past year, have you created any modular monoliths? And say that 3 times fast. Okay, all right, well, those results are pretty in line with what we saw in the survey, and I'll get to that in a second. Yeah, I think we see a trend. Okay, more microservices than modular monoliths. Perfect, okay. So we're gonna be talking about Spring Modulith, and I wanna start by setting sort of a North Star, right? As you know, most of the Spring stack really deals with technical concerns, and the mission of Spring Modulith is to provide opinions and support around modular architecture. So for the North Star, by the end of this keynote, I want you to feel that this project is so fundamental and so relevant that it should be as ubiquitous as Spring Boot. So you heard a little bit about the survey, right, in the previous keynotes. So this is sort of in line with what you just said. Here it shows that for companies that are using mostly modern architectural environments, their usage of serverless, reactive, and microservices goes up. And especially you can see it goes up by 15% for microservices. And the trend is the opposite. For modular monoliths, the usage is lower by half. So maybe this is just indicative of how strong an association we have of modern architecture with microservices. Or maybe it's because only 8% of respondents are using Spring Modulith. So either way, maybe but with this keynote, we can start to change that. So modularizing software, the idea of modularizing software is not new. As developers, we're always looking for ways to make our code more understandable, easier to change, easier to maintain, and there's endless literature on this topic going back at least 60 years. And especially the last 10 years, there's been a lot of dynamic change. I think in 2010, Netflix kind of kicked us off with distributed microservice architectures, and there's been a lot of technical advances. And along with that, there's been a big evolution of ideas as well, including a renewed interest in domain-driven design because it found such close alignment with microservices. Because microservices are physically separate in Git repos and deployments, they force us to respect code boundaries. And there's also been innovation in this space. Things, for example, like distributed tracing, where we can get an idea of component relationships just based on network traffic. So the last 10 years have really been characterized by a lot of collective forward movement in modular architecture, but it's specifically been driven by microservices. And meanwhile, in the monolith space, not that much was changing, right? Monoliths are still valued for prototyping mostly or for initial development, but a lot of the focus with monoliths has been on refactoring them into microservices. But microservices are not a silver bullet. There are trade-offs, there are challenges, and there are risks. So we've done a lot of things right, but we also learned a lot of lessons. And I think it's a good time for us to take those lessons and those techniques that we've developed and make a big leap forward with monoliths. And that is what Spring Modulith is doing. So let's first take a step back in time to the origin story of Spring Modulith. So in 2012, Oliver Drottbaum, who at the time was the lead for Spring Data, was touring conferences and Java user groups and talking about his ideas on how to manage architecture in Java and Spring applications. In 2013, Spring Boot was created, and this was important because it would later serve as the foundation for Spring Modulith. In 2017, the ArcUnit project was created. An ArcUnit is a library for evaluating the architecture of Java applications. And it wasn't the first of its kind, but it was one that integrated with any testing framework, including JUnit. And also, it was extensible, so you could define your own architectural rules. And this aligned really well with what Ollie was looking for because he wanted to implement his ideas in the most plain Java way possible. So shortly thereafter, Oliver started this sort of hobby project on the side called Moduliths, and that had its first release in November of 2020. A couple of years later, this project had enough demand, both from the community and from Oliver's time, that it was adopted as an official Spring project. August of 2023, 1.0 release of Spring Modulith, and the original Moduliths project was retired, which brings us to just last Friday. Spring Modulith 1.2 was released. So what does Spring Modulith do? So first, let's be clear about what it does not do. It will not identify your domains or your bounded contexts, and it's not going to untangle your code. You still have to do that work. There's still no such thing as a free lunch. But once you do that, it will help you verify both your architecture and your code. It's going to help you visualize at design time and at runtime. And it's going to help you integrate modules with each other and with external systems. So let's talk about verification first. Fundamentally, Spring Modulith is going to help you translate your logical architectural ideas into something concrete. And it's going to do that by way of an opinionated arrangement of code. So as you know, with Spring Boot, starting from your main application class, Spring Boot will scan all of your packages, but it sees all the packages as a single application. So Spring Modulith is piggybacking off of this capability, but it's going to interpret every top-level package as a separate module. So you can see here, we have two top-level packages. You can infer from this that we have two modules in our logical design. Anything public at this top level is going to be considered API, and anything in a sub-package is considered internal implementation to that module. Going further, Spring Modulith is going to help you enforce these boundaries between modules. I don't know if you're familiar with this game called Operation. You use these tweezers to pick the bones out of the patient, but if you touch the edges, the game would sound an alarm. So similarly, Spring Modulith, if you try to access a resource that's internal to another module, it's going to sound an alarm. And that alarm is going to come by way of a failed test. So Spring Modulith is not invasive into your production code. Rather, it's applying these architectural rules through tests. So I mentioned it's going to help you also verify your code, not just your architecture. And by that, I meant that with Spring Modulith, you're able to slice the application vertically. You know that with Spring Boot, you can test horizontal slices along technical lines like data or web, et cetera. So Spring Modulith is adding the ability to isolate a module or a module and its dependencies. And it's really easy to do with a simple annotation on your test classes. Okay, so let's talk about visualization. From a design perspective, Spring Modulith is going to help you describe what's architecturally important about your architecture. Intentionally, it doesn't describe the implementation. That's considered internal concern of a module. But from another test code, it will generate component relationship diagrams and tables of relevant metadata. And then at runtime, we mentioned distributed tracing for microservices, where with Micrometer and Spring Boot, you have a trace ID that represents a request, and a span is added at every Spring Boot application so that you can see how a transaction hops across the network. What Spring Modulith is adding is a span ID for every API entry point for every module within an application. So at the end, you would have something like this, where you can understand the flow of traffic between modules within a single Spring Boot application. Amazing, right? Okay, so integration. So there's different ways to integrate modules, but for integration through events, Spring Modulith adds some extra support. Why is this necessary? So let's take this example. Here we have an order module that is calling inventory and rewards, and it's making a direct reference to the code. So this is tightly coupled, number one. And number two, inventory and rewards have to complete before orders can close its commit boundary, right? So it would be better if orders would just publish an event, and then inventory and rewards or any other system that is interested in reacting to orders can subscribe, and orders doesn't even have to know about it. This is decoupled from a code perspective, but within a single Spring Boot application, you can do this by leveraging Spring Application Events, which is the in-memory sort of local broadcasting messaging system that Spring Framework provides. But these events by default are synchronous. So in this case, order would still be held up because it has to wait for the subscribing systems to finish before it can close its commit boundary. So the best thing would be if the listeners could operate asynchronously, allowing order to close its commit boundary and continue its own concerns, and for each listener to also initiate its own commit boundary. So this is made really easy. This combined recommended configuration is made really easy by Spring Modulith with a single annotation. Now this is almost perfect, but what if one of those listeners fails, right? Order, again, has closed its commit boundary, is onto something else, so we could lose one of those events. So what Spring Modulith provides is a database called an event publication registry, which you can opt into so that the events can be recorded, serialized, and then if the listener fails, you can also opt into having those events republished automatically when the listener comes up again. So that is messaging within modules within a single Spring Boot application. What if you need to externalize an event? Maybe an external system is just interested in responding to an event, or maybe you want to break out one of your modules and deploy it as a separate microservice. Again, Spring Modulith makes it really easy to transition to external infrastructure like Kafka, Rabbit, JMS, et cetera, with a very simple annotation. So there you go. So Spring Modulith has verified, visualized, and integrated, and it didn't even break a sweat. Amazing. So key takeaways. Functional decomposition is first, right? Regardless of your implementation strategy, we can all converge around common architectural practices. For Spring Boot applications, now we have specific and actionable guidance for turning these ideas, our logical architectural ideas, into code. So regardless of whether you choose Monolith, Modulith, or microservices, the Spring ecosystem has you covered. Now remember our North Star. I want to take this a little bit further. And rather than thinking about Spring Modulith for monoliths and Spring Cloud for microservices, how about Spring Boot as our technical foundation, Spring Modulith as our architectural foundation, and then either Spring Cloud or one of the messaging integrations for our distributed system needs. So, okay, last thing. I want to highlight one of the features that was just released on Friday with Spring Modulith 1.2, and that is open application modules. With this feature, you can declare, if you have legacy code and modular code, they can now coexist because you can declare that a package full of legacy code is now just an open package. So Spring Modulith will still recognize it for documentation, for distributed tracing, but it won't trigger any access violations. So this is now giving you a path forward to refactor legacy code in place. Because the prevailing strategy for refactoring legacy code has been what Martin Fowler termed in 2004 as the strangler fig application pattern. And this became especially popular with microservices. It's kind of the standard approach. But this approach requires that you set up a system in parallel to your legacy system, and you're kind of rewriting the old into the new. You're managing traffic, and eventually you have all of your traffic going to the new code. You can retire the old code. But now with Spring Modulith and open application modules, you have a path forward doing it in place. You don't have to change your traffic patterns. You don't have to change your deployment strategy. And you don't have to take on the challenges of a distributed system. Amazing. Yes. So I think that this is different enough, and I think you agree, that maybe it deserves a new name. So I had a few ideas. Call to action number 1 is help me name that pattern. So I thought of a chrysalis, where you have a little monolithic caterpillar turning into a beautiful and much more agile butterfly. The downside of this analogy is that while it's a metamorphosis, you're not really benefiting from the chrysalis is kind of in hibernation. So whereas with Modulith, you're really benefiting from the transformation even as you're halfway there, right? So then I thought, well, maybe it's like braiding hair, because you do feel more organized even when you're, no pun intended, partway there. And then I thought, a garden is a good analogy, right? You've got your big ball of mud, legacy code, and you start organizing it into patches, and you can benefit from it right away. But clearly, I had no idea what to name this one. So if you have thoughts or other ideas, let us know. You can tag Oliver, tag me, tag Spring Modulith, hashtag SpringIO, and maybe we can name it together. Maybe we can even get Martin Fowler to weigh in to see if we need a new name or what that name could be. That would be very cool. And call to action number 2 is try it out. You know, tell your friends, whether you're doing new development or you're modernizing older code, you now have this path forward to really clearly create code that is evolvable and understandable. And maybe when we come back next year, we'll see that we've broken this association and that we have a much more balanced perception of modern architecture regardless of implementation. So that's it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I want to hand it over to Christian. You have a treat in front of you. This is the topic of the year, Spring AI, presented by none other than Christian Solov and Josh Long. So there you go. You need this? There's a clicker. Aww.
Awesome. You did great.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Just technical handover. Awkward, yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. HDMI. Oh my goodness. Can you all hear us? Yes. Sweet.
Okay.
All right. Oh no, you can't see us. That's not good. That's terrible bad. Okay, let's see. Well,
That's enough, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's see. Wrong screen. Mirror for main display. It's a good thing we figured this out. I would have done the whole thing and nobody would have had a clue. All right, good. Can you see our screen? No? Maybe?
Okay, here we are.
Whew. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Good morning. That was, you don't have, you don't have coffee in this country? All right. Look, hi, I'm Josh Long.
And my name is Christian. I'm part of the Spring AI core team.
And we need a selfie, very quickly, okay? So here's what we're gonna do, everybody. Pretend like you're happy, smile, and shut up. All right, here we go. You ready? Steady. Say, open source.
Open source, yeah.
All right, good. After you. So excited.
Cool. So I'm part of the core member of the Spring AI team. My work focuses around distributed system, distributed data, data engineering, AI, and mentioning AI. We are here today to make the argument that AI is here to stay. If you don't take our word for granted, please check the recent IDC report called The Business Opportunities of AI. Among other things, it states that apparently over 70% of the organizations already use some form of AI, which is quite impressive number.
Yeah.
I'm surprised myself. Yeah, you can check the URL if you want to verify the reports. But there is another thing. The survey mentions that it's global, and being a European skeptic, I wonder if this is the same type of global like the World Series of baseball. Yeah, keep in mind that NL doesn't stand for Netherlands in this list. Yeah.
Global.
It's a global. So if AI is so powerful and so popular, what are the main use cases and main enterprise opportunities where it's being used? Apparently there is plenty. We can argue that any domain has been affected with AI. Particularly, I'm biased, I really like the idea of using generative AI for software development. But most importantly, if you look through most of those use cases, you'd realize that they boil down to integrating your application APIs and your application data with AI and customize it for your domain.
So wait, so if those are the good use cases, and there seem to be many, what are some of the some of the bad ones?
Actually, I'm surprised you're asking this, Josh, because it's obviously fruit.
Fruit.
Yeah, I believe that
banana. Why didn't that advance when we pushed the button? Oh, there we go. There's a huge lag. Like that was Slack loading time. Look at that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
pick your new favorite fruit now, so it's quite trendy.
Look at, so name the 10 fruits that end with ums, and it gave us bananums.
I don't know Latin, but
it sounds like Latin bananas. I don't know. Yeah.
It's very sophisticated. This is the latest OpenAI model, so it must be.
I love the tweet. It says, ChatGPT 4.0 is amazing. It's AGI, exclamation mark, exclamation mark.
It is. But okay, if AI is here to stay, what actually takes to be doing AI in reality? So is it supposed to look like something that is going to come in a second?
Wow, that is so awkward.
Yeah, it takes some time. So this really looks like a NASA control center, and in fact, this was the DeepMind AlphaGo team that was flown in as a Formula 1 team to beat the world champions in Go, as they did. And as a matter of fact, it was the same DeepMind team that published the founding paper for generative AI, which is called Attention is All You Need. And you need attentions and a lot of walkie-talkies.
Walkie-talkies? You know things are serious when there's walkie-talkies involved.
No question about this, so that's how it goes. But we can make the argument that it shouldn't be that complicated. After all, generative AI, using generative AI is integration problem, and guess what? Java is really shining in this domain. And this guy may know,
might know a thing or two about it, right?
This guy, I mean, sorry, it's coming back. This guy may know a thing or two about how to use, and this is too
5 minutes later.
Okay, I'll be slow, take it easy.
Like he pushed the button a week ago. Hey, there you go, okay.
I'm not touching anything, so this is the guy I'm mentioning, so, but he might know about things or two about, of using Java for real world business purposes.
A thing, yeah, I think he's got an idea.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a great language for developing Gen AI apps. Don't need to use Python. It's communicating with models with HTTP is easy in any language, right?
And that's...
Okay, wait for it.
Back in time, Okay, here. So Python is here to stay. It has its very well niche purpose, but Java is not hypothetically rising. It's really rising, and as of recently, it has become one of the top languages for the customers of Azure OpenAI. And it's not only Microsoft that likes it, Google does too.
You can't see this, but there's a slide that speaks to what he just
Google
said.
slide. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
That was.
Okay, hold on. Wait for it. Oh. Yeah. Okay, come on. Almost there.
So what you're supposed to see is the recommended enterprise stack from Google as presented during the Google Cloud Next earlier this year. Hopefully it will show up. I don't know.
It's incredible.
Okay, here it is. So, okay, Josh, this stage looks intimidatingly huge.
Yeah.
But there is something very important. I think what I like is the recognizable logo on top of this stack.
Right, and those are full-sized adults in the bottom for context, right?
Yeah, so.
This stage is big. That was a stadium, and there's Spring.
And there is Spring. And indeed, oh, that was smart move.
Yeah.
Unintentional, but maybe it's getting intelligent, you know? But indeed, Spring AI is this missing piece in the Spring stack that helps you to do AI engineering. We believe that it is conceptually easy to comprehend. It provides some high-level key service abstractions for vector stores and AI models. It covers the most common patterns for doing AI. And we believe that any Spring developer should feel like right at home using Spring AI. And when I mention Spring developer, the developer, Josh, let's see how this works.
Okay, I'd be happy to show you.
Appreciate it, Jakob.
Thank you. First of all, big round of applause for Christian. Not just an amazing presenter, a huge part of the core Spring AI team. We would not be here without him. That's no exaggeration. Huge, huge. A legend. All right. So I don't know what was going on with the signal there. If I switch back, it's fine with that. That's bizarre as heck. All right, so friends, Kristen and I were talking about what we could do to better demonstrate Spring AI. And obviously, we thought, well, we could always go back to type and revisit the famed Spring Pet Clinic. And we thought, well, we don't want to actually revisit the app proper, amazing though it is. We want to just revisit the theme of it. And you know, pets are really near and dear to both of our hearts. All of us, I expect, appreciate pets. And me in particular, I have a dog. And I'll be honest with you, my dog's terrible. Just the worst dog. The worst dog. He's a little furry fascist, a tiny tyrant who runs around the house like he owns the place, and he puts little rubber duckies all over the place, and if you step on the rubber ducky, you can expect to lose a foot. He's not a good dog, and but you know, we love him, but he's not a good dog, and he kind of reminds me of this dog. This is a dog that named Prancer that this person was trying to find a new home for during the pandemic, and she described the dog like this. She said, she described it as a vessel for a traumatized Victorian child that now haunts our home, right? And said that there's not a very big market for neurotic, man-hating, animal-hating, children-hating dogs that look like gremlins, right? So it reminds me of my dog, right? And so you might be asking, why? Why do you have such a dog? And I'll tell you a couple reasons. They are pretty selfish. The first reason is ego, if I'm honest. I am not very smart. In my family, my partner and my daughter both speak 5 languages. But 3.5. And so if the dog wasn't there, I would be the stupidest thing in the house. We have to have that dog. Very important. Very important. Also, he is cute. Look at that. That's a cute dog. Evil, but cute, right? So let's build an example that kind of speaks to some of the awesome opportunities here. And as always, we're going to do this by visiting my second favorite place on the internet, start.spring.io. And we're going to build a new service, and I'm going to call this service Service. You know why I'm going to call it Service? Because I'm amazing with names. Amazing. I get that from my father. My father was amazing with names. When I was a small boy, we had a small white dog, and my father named him White Dog. Amazing with names. Amazing. that said, my mom, she tells me all the time, she says, you're very lucky that I named you. And yeah, that's probably true. Okay, so we're gonna call this service. We're gonna use these versions of Java and Spring Boot and all that kind of stuff. We're gonna add GraalVM, of course. We're gonna add the web support. We're gonna add the PG vector support. This is one of many different vector databases that you could add, but this one happens to be compatible with Postgres. It is Postgres. We're gonna use Spring Data JDBC right here, and we're gonna use the OpenAI integration. Now, there are many different model integrations here. We're using OpenAI. You could use Amazon's Bedrock. You could use Google's Gemini. You could use, if you want to do air-gapped, offline, completely internet-free Olama. Lots of different choices there. Does that look about right? Did I get everything in there?
Yeah, Amazon, yeah, okay.
Everything, let's just do it, YOLO, okay? So we're gonna hit enter, and I've already got this, I've got a database running in the background here with a bunch of dogs that we want to put up for adoption. So if you select all from dogs where I like Prancer, you can see we have a demonic, neurotic, man-hating, animal-hating, children-hating dog that looks like gremlins, right? This dog deserves a home. All dogs, even bad dogs, deserve good homes. So we want to build a little facility to support that use case. And to start with, of course, we have to plug in some configuration. So we'll do that here. Okay, so application.properties, paste that in. Okay, so I've just specified some connectivity information. I've also specified that we want to use the ChatGPT 4.0 model. This is very important. You don't want to use the old and busted 3.5 anymore. And we got virtual threads. What else? I want to now actually talk to my LLM. So I'll create an application that uses the new chat client, right? How many of you have had a chance to try the new chat client in Spring AI 1.0 M1? All right, good stuff. The rest of you, what are you doing? What are you doing? All right, so builder.build, all right? This looks pretty familiar, right? If you've ever used any other builders, the JDBC client, the web client, the REST client, etc., they all have this basic same motif. And then we're going to create an application runner to demonstrate its usage, right? So I'll say return new application. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to inject the chat client. I'm going to use it to make a request of our LLM. It's going to work, by the way, but only because I have specified an OpenAI API key, but you don't see it here, friends, because I, off-screen, have exported an environment variable and then put that there before I started the process. Forgive me for not leaking my API credential, okay? Just trust that it's been done. All right, so we've got the AI, and I want to make a simple request, prompt user, and I'm going to ask it a very simple question. What am I going to ask it? Well, I'm going to ask it to tell us a story, okay? So var query, prompt, whatever, user, text, here we go. And I'm going to do it in Spanish, but I'll read this for you in English. I'm saying, Dear API, please tell me a story about the people in the beautiful city of Barcelona, Spain, and do so in the style of the famous author of books for kids, Dr. Seuss, one of my favorite doctors, along with Dr. Pollock, the founder of Spring AI, and Dr. Subramaniam, and a bunch of others. And then I say, cordially, Josh, okay? So I'm going to put that query in there, and I'll say call, and I'll get the content, and then we'll just print out the results. Now, I'm going to go ahead and run this, and let's see what we get, okay? Whoops, consider defining a bean of type chat model. Oh, I forgot the, I didn't add OpenAI. That seems important. Yeah. Oh, I got, thank goodness for the Spring initializer. Here we go. Command-Shift-I, let's go. Take 5. Okay, up and running. Making a network call. And by the way, let's see, making a network call, getting the response maybe. It's taking its time. This is a reason to remember, you want virtual threads. For non-blocking I/O, you don't want to be sitting there waiting, okay? So there we go. There's, the response, it rhymes. If you can't read Spanish, well, I'm so sorry, lo siento. But en la ciudad de Barcelona junto al mar azul, right? And it's a poem, it's a story that rhymes about Barcelona, which is awesome. Now, friends, you might be asking me, hey, why are you so polite? Dear AI, cordially, Josh, right? And the reason is because I have seen the documentary called Terminator, and I know that the machines will not forget nor soon forgive our transgressions. How many of you in the poll have seen that documentary? Okay, where's the poll? I think we're going to do a switch over thing. I'm sure it's going to go fine. Is there a poll? There we go. All right, very important. How many of you have seen the documentary and are prepared for the new situation. Okay, not a lot of people. This is, AI 101 course book material. Okay, well, good. All right, I have another question. How many of you, by show of hands, are doing or using AI already in your organization? Just show of hands, that one. Some of you, okay. How many of you are planning to do so? Okay. How many of you have stopped wanting to do so now that you've seen us for this long? Okay. All right. Moving on. So we've got this nice response, but again, this has very little to do with our ambitions about setting up a pet store to support adoption of dogs and cats and the like. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our chat client a little bit smarter. We're going to give it a prompt so that it knows to act in the persona of an assistant supporting the process of adopting a pet, okay? So I'm going to specify a default resource pointing to this new prompt, this new system prompt. So I'll say resource, okay, system at value, class path, system.md, MD, and I'm going to copy and paste here this system prompt into the class path. So source, main, resources, here we go, new system.md, paste that in, and it's going to say, you are an AI-powered assistant to help people adopt a dog from the adoption agency named Spring Pets Emporium with locations in Barcelona and Madrid, Spain. If you don't know about the dogs housed at our particular stores, then return a disappointed response suggesting that we don't have anything available. Okay, so we're going to use that here. We're going to inject it as a resource, just put that in there. And now I'm going to change the question that I ask. I say, do you have any neurotic dogs? Question mark, right? Okay, let's see what it gives us in response, all right? So up and running, go, go, go. It says, I'm sorry, but we don't have any information about the specific dogs housed at Spring's Pet Emporium at the moment. However, you're welcome to visit our locations in Barcelona or Madrid to speak with our staff who can help match you with a dog that suits your needs and preferences. So already, we're getting somewhere. It doesn't know about our inventory, our catalog, our guest list of cute dogs, but at least it's acting like it should, right? It's in the persona of that. And that's because we gave it this system context that informs how it does everything else, okay? This governing overall context. So now I think we need to connect it to our database, right? But we can't just connect it straight to our SQL table, right? It's not really great for AI, is it?
No, you really have to have more semantical database that you can use for this.
Right, okay, so that means vector stores, I think, right?
That's correct.
And we have it's just another core abstraction. He talked about it earlier. There's a vector store interface, and there are like, what, half dozen implementations in Spring AI already?
And counting.
And counting, yeah. So we're going to inject our vector store, okay? Vector store. And we also need to create a little domain so that we can actually talk to our SQL database. So I'll create a record here for our domain type, name, string, description, all right, like so. Okay, and we're going to say @ID, good. And we're going to create an interface, dog repository, extends list of CRUD repository. This, by the way, just an FYI, just a little context here. This is another project that Spring AI founder and lead, Dr. Pollack, used to lead, which is Spring Data. Fun. Okay, so we're going to use that dog repository here. Dog repository. Okay, by the way, doesn't that just sound cute? Like imagine a repository of dogs. Just the cutest thing. Okay, so, because I'm just imagining like a ball of fur and cuteness like staring at me, right? So we're going to say repository.findAll for each dog. Okay, then we're going to create a document, okay, new document, and we're going to store this in the, let's see, name, colon, comma, description, colon. I'm going to say dog.description, and we're going to put the name here as well, so dog.name, okay, voila. And then we're going to provide some metadata that helps us sort of trace back the data to the source document or the source record here, and then we're just going to write that into the vector store, like so. So add list of document. And by the way, we can all agree this should be document, okay? All right, good. All right, so let's go ahead and we've got the data in the vector store now. Now we need to connect our LLM and our chat client to that vector store. So I'm going to advise it by adding a default advisor, okay? New question answer advisor. I'm going to inject the vector store here, and I'm going to pass that in here. I'm going to say, when you talk to the vector store, use the default search type, okay? And now I'm going to ask it the same question, but it's going to know to consult that vector store for information, okay? So I guess I can just put enter there. So here we go. Let's rerun this. It's going to do ingest. When the program starts up, it'll do a little bit of ingest and write the data out. So here we go. run. Up, 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 up. There we go. I knew I had a problem. All right, good. Here we go. So it's going to take a little while, and this, this does take a little while, right? This is I'm copying data from one table to the vector store. And by the way, I happen to be using PG vector store, which is in the same database as my JDBC, Spring Data JDBC code. But you could use any number of different vector stores here, right? So let that do its thing. This is, the one thing about doing something that is data-centric on stage is you kind of have to wait for the data to get where it needs to get, okay? Here we go. There we go. So, what did I do wrong? Did I miss something obvious? ID, name, description.
You're using the right model for all.
For what?
The right application.
Application
Properties.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. 4.0.
Yeah, it's 4.0. It's the right model.
Yeah. Okay. How much you want to bet? I'm going to just when in doubt, just try it out. Here we go. You never know. Oop, I'm going to rerun the thing out, by the way. So let's see. Comment this out. We don't want to run that again. Rerun. Here we go. We don't want to re-ingest the data twice. Okay. Huh. Did I miss something?
Everything seems to be okay.
He's right there. Okay. So let's see the vector source. So wait.
Yeah.
Delete from vector. You want to select all from vector source or just delete it? What could go wrong? Should we just delete it and rerun that code?
Reject it, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, maybe we just have too much data. Okay. Restart. Here we go.
Name and description is correct. Do you have it anywhere?
Wait for it. Chat client, where are you, buddy? There you are, new question advisor, okay. There you go. Yes, we do have a neurotic dog named Prancer. Prancer is... I don't know what that was about. Prancer is described as a demonic, neurotic, man-hating, animal-hating, children-hating dog that looks like a gremlin. If you're interested in meeting Prancer or learning more about him, please let us know. So now our AI code knows about our data, right? Look, friends, this is not PHP. We don't write unnecessary code for no reason. I woke up this morning, I said, I'm going to write a RAG pipeline. I wrote one line of code, and now my LLM knows about my data. What did you do today, right? So... this is pretty good, but I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to take this dog home with me. The question then is, how do we schedule a pickup? And then that's the most important part, right? The finish line is actually taking the dog with. So I want to give our LLM a little bit of a executive agency. I want it to be able to help us schedule a pickup for this dog, right? And so we're going to do that by introducing a function, okay? So function, description, schedule a pickup for dog adoptions, okay? Does that look right? And we're going to create a bean. We're going to actually create a record here, pet adoption pickup request for the dog name, blah. And then here's the response telling us when, string when, okay? And then the function will work in terms of these two input and output types. So pet blah, 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 response, okay? And schedule pet adoption pickup, okay? Return new function. And I'm just going to say, okay, got a request. Here we are, pet blah, and we're going to say return new pickup response. We'll just say now. You should write right now because our keynote time is nearly over. Here we go. Pass that there. And I'm going to now tell our chat client about this new function, this tool that it has at its disposal, by instructing it, by telling it about it. So default functions, et voila, okay? So now I'm going to change the prompt, not to, do you have a dog of this type, but when can I pick up Prancer, right? When can I pick up Prancer, okay? Look good? Let's rerun this one more time.
Congrats, you're close to get it home.
Almost there.
So you're about to have two evil dogs.
Maybe they'll cancel each other out. Maybe two wrongs do make a right. Let's see what we get here. It doesn't look like is it the internet? Did I miss something? It's a function. Got the request response. Oh, maybe it's because it's inside here.
No.
Up. Up. One more time, this time with more gusto. Okay. Honestly, I wonder if it's like a compilation side effect or something. It's the internet. Like, if we're going to fail, I'd rather fail fast, you know? What is the prompt? Schedule a pickup.
For dog adoptions.
For dog adoptions, right? There we go. It was the internet. Because remember, it's going to the internet there. So it says, got a request. Pick up the request. Name Prancer. You can pick up Prancer. You can pick up Prancer on May 30th at 8:49 a.m. I think we did it. I think we have ourselves a pet clinic, an actual pet clinic, right? Friends, this has been a lot of fun. I think we went from nothing and we got something really sophisticated in very little time indeed. Who learned something new? All right. Who had fun? All right. I'm glad to hear it.
I did.
We had fun too. Don't forget to come to the Good Christian and Dr. Pollack's session later today on Spring AI if you want to get the 411 and everything that we didn't get to cover here. What time? It's like the last one, right?
I think, yeah, 7:30.
At this very room.
15:30, yeah.
Okay.
5:30.
Muchísimas gracias, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Guys, give it up for all the speakers that you heard today. Well done, well done.